All right, Connecticut's not playing football this year. Their head coach is Randy Edsall, who joins us, an independent school as of this year. Coach, thanks for joining us. When did the department decide on this, that you're not going to have football this year?
Well, we've been going through this process, Dan, since really July the 1st. Once our kids came back to campus, when we first started the testing process where our young men had to take a test for the COVID and be negative before they could take a physical. And then the NCAA allowed us to have some voluntary workouts. And then starting July 12th, we were allowed to have workouts where, we could have 8 hours of lifting and conditioning or 6 hours lifting, conditioning, and meetings. And then starting July 22nd, then we were able to get into 20 hours per week where we could do walkthroughs and then also have virtual meetings and do that. So as we were going through this whole process, there were situations that arose with our young people. We still haven't had a young man test positive yet. So that is really a good thing. The procedures and protocols that our university put into place has been very good. But what had happened through this whole process is we had 3 young men who came down with symptoms. They got up in the morning and we have to fill out an app to say, do you have these symptoms before you can even get into the building? And we had those young men who had to be isolated. There's 3 of them. And in July the 10th, July the 17th, and then July 25th. And with those young men having those symptoms, then you have to do the contact tracing. So when you do the contact tracing, now you're incorporating. In our first one, there were 7 other young men. The second one, there was 3. And then this last one, there was 9. So we've had 22 young men that there's been an average of 10 days in terms of getting the test back. And then when you take into the consideration that when you go on the field, there's certain things you can and cannot do. Social distancing. Yesterday was supposed to be our first practice. We went out on the field, but we weren't able to use helmets. We weren't able to have shields where guys could go block. We couldn't get up and play press coverage.
How are we going to pull this off, Coach? How is college football going to happen? You're at Connecticut. If you were still at Maryland, would you be playing football? Would you have a team this year take the field?
No, and I said that yesterday in the press conference. If I was a head coach and I was in a Power 5 conference, whether it's the Big Ten or the ACC, I would go to my administration and I would sit down with our players and I would say, we can't play football. And that's exactly what I did. I was on the field as all this was going on in July. I called my athletic director and told him, I said, there's no way we can do this with all the things that we have to go through. And that's even before you get into the game, because I don't think these kids are could be properly prepared and conditioned to go in and play a game. I think you're going to see a lot of injuries because kids aren't prepared to go in. But like I said, if I was in the Big Ten, the ACC, I would be saying the same thing and doing the same thing. Money is not the object here. Schedule is not the object. As you go through this, we can't even use our locker room, Dan. Our kids can't even go in the locker room. We have 16 people in the weight room lifting at one time. We couldn't go in and use our training room the way it needed to be. So you could have prevention of injuries where we can only get 2 guys in our huge cold tubs, those things. Nobody can still tell me. And, we had some people calling us and with the games, and then, nobody can still tell me how you're going to do game day. Are you going to have to dress at the hotel, bus to the stadium? Are you going to have to, how are you going to social distance? The NCAA is putting you social distance on the sideline from 20 to 20. Kids have to wear masks if they're not in the game. But now, before the game, it's going to be okay to be in the locker room, or it's going to be okay at halftime to go in there. Then after the game, right now here at UConn, we were in a bubble. But in 8 days, we got 8,000 students coming back. Our bubble is gone. Everybody else's bubble is gone.
Are coaches in denial, Randy?
I just think there's people afraid to make decisions, Dan. People in leadership positions are afraid to make decisions, and they're kicking the can down the road, and they're trying to say, okay, we're going to try to do everything that we can, knowing in the back of their mind it's probably not going to happen. and they're going to cancel the season. And that's why I give our players credit, because our players came to me and we were talking. They said, Coach, there's no way we can have a season. And I concurred with them. So we sat down on Friday, this past Friday, myself, our leadership council, 12 young men, our athletic director, David Benedict, Dr. Casiero, our team physician, our trainer. And I told our guys, you express your concerns to David and to Doc Casiero and Bob. And they did. They want to play, Dan. There's no doubt about that. They want to play. It's not that they don't want to play, but they just are very concerned about their safety and the lack of answers that people can have because of this virus, because it's new and people don't know. And they just didn't think the risk was worth the reward.
He's Randy Edsall, the UConn head football coach. You had games against Indiana and Illinois, so Big Ten was going conference only. Ole Miss, they were going to go conference only. North Carolina, Virginia, conference only. How are you going to have a schedule if you decided to play? How are you going to fill in those weekends?
Well, there were people that were calling us, but we also have in this state, Dan, we have a travel ban.
I know.
And Connecticut has done a great job with this virus. Their numbers are way down. Governor Lamont has done a great job. Okay. So if we went to play, the only two games that we had on our schedule was UMass and Army that we could have played, because all those other teams that we were going to play, they were in states where there was a travel ban. There was people that we could have played. We had people calling us. People were calling David. Coaches were calling me. And but in terms of the protocols and everything else, it wasn't. But it wasn't so much that, Dan. It was more so because our players didn't feel safe. And the one thing that I think has to happen, and I'm glad we made the decision, and our young people had a say in it, a big say in it. Okay. And that's the thing to me that's missing. I don't think these players, the people who are playing the game, first and foremost, don't have a say in what's going on.
No, I applaud you with that, Coach, because we've seen this at other coaches and other situations where, hey, we value our student athletes until they're not on the same page with you. We saw this with Washington State. Hey, we're all in it together. Wait, you don't agree with me as the coach? Well, then we want you off the team. I'm glad that you're listening to them, because they don't have a singular voice who represents them. And that's what worries me the most about all of this. Those kids are going to play. They don't want to lose their scholarships. But I think there are a lot of coaches in denial right now. Have you heard from other coaches since your decision whether you want to make their names known nationally here?
I'm not going to name names, Dan, but yes, I have gotten responses from coaches and have said, thanks for speaking up and glad you had the guts to do what you've done. And I think, again, all you got to do, Dan, and this is the whole problem. Okay. And I said this a couple days ago, put the pluses, put the minuses down. There's only one plus: money.
Yeah.
It's the only plus.
Yeah.
Is money. And you go down to minuses and there's much more. I think there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of players that don't want to have the season. My assistant coaches have gotten calls from people. I've gotten calls from people. Okay. I know our players appreciate them having a word, because they know other people and they say, Coach, we're glad we had a say, because those people don't have a say somewhere else. And that's what really bothers me the most is, don't talk about the health and welfare of the student athlete if you're not going to go and listen to them and engage them in the conversation. Because as I've said, I'm not playing the game. David Benedict's not playing the game. Our board of trustees isn't playing the game. Our president isn't playing the game. Those are the guys. And you know what? All you got to do is take a look at, in the NFL has a players union. They have a players association. Well, guess what? They were going to put them out there. No, the Players Association spoke up, and they ended up getting things changed so those guys could go in and feel safe. And then they also, if they didn't want to play, they could opt out, and there was options for them there. In the college game, like I said, everybody talks about that, but you're right. Nobody backs it up. Everybody walks away from it when push comes to shove.
Well, Coach, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time as always. And I don't know what you do over the next 5 months, but
Well, we have a plan. The thing is, I'm meeting this afternoon with our leadership council, and we're going to put the plan together. And what we're going to do, we're going to work to get bigger, faster, stronger. We're going to go on the field and do work. But again, our players are going to have a say in that in terms of what we do, along with our strength coach. And, we're going to gear ourselves to 2021. And again, the spring was never an option because to me, you talk about the health and welfare and safety of a student athlete. How could you go and play games all the way up to May and then come back and play another
oh, I know.
season?
Yeah.
Fall?
Yeah, not possible. Coach, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Okay, Dan, appreciate it.
That's Randy Edsall. He's the head coach at Connecticut.